is we're all different at how we express our intentions. Knowing yourself and understanding yourself is of critical importance. And now look, we all think we know ourselves. We've lived with ourselves for however many years. But what about those times where you react in a way that you weren't expecting? What about those times when someone pushes your buttons and you explode and you think, where did that come from? They're all parts of us that we don't yet know. If I have a gift in my hands, I can give it to you and you can take it, yeah? You want it, don't you? So for example, say this gift is forgiveness. I have forgiveness, I can give it to you. But let's say I don't have forgiveness. Can I give you forgiveness? The answer is really no. So therefore, if you don't fully understand yourself, how can you ever possibly understand someone else? In fact, there are some statistics that say that businesses lose 32% of profit due to poor communication. 32%. So if you're in a business that, let's be conservative and say it earns $500,000 a year, $160,000 down the drain because of poor communication. That's staggering. And it can be turned around. How? Understand yourself. When you understand yourself, you can begin to understand others. Self-talk. The one true thing that will help or hinder your success. A perfect example of poor communication. Why do we as parents keep doing something that obviously isn't working? We usually marry our opposite. Now that's a great thing, but if you don't understand each other, you're heading down a very scary path. Poor communication, the word poor is not strong enough. What does it mean, poor? It means to lack quality or of inadequate sufficiency. But I want you to think about a time in your life when you've experienced poor communication or where you've had relational breakdown. I want you to think about a time where you've lost a friendship. Maybe you've lost a marriage. I know I have. Maybe you have walked away from someone because you just couldn't get through. Now, is poor a really good word for describing how you felt in that situation? No. So I don't call poor communication poor. I call it cancerous. Think about some of these single little moments. Perhaps it's a look, perhaps a harsh tone. Perhaps you ask a question of someone that you respect and they roll their eyes. Maybe they don't even look at you when you speak to them. Maybe you have expected an apology and it never came. Or you've avoided a conversation because you're too scared to have it. Now all of these things are little tiny things, but they grow. And when they grow, it becomes cancerous. And that relationship no longer functions the way that it should be. So it's cancerous communication. When we're talking about how each of these styles work, I'm going to use an acronym called O.W.N. I want you to learn how to own your DNA. And as I go through each style, you'll relate to one or more of them, okay? You'd wonder, why on earth do these two people end up being together? But they're opposites, they attract. And they work because they complement each other. But if you don't understand each other, you're in trouble. When stress hits, you become it's almost like you go to other ends of the pole. So while it's great to be attracted to someone who's opposite you, you're actually choosing to spend your life with someone you have least in common with as a communicator. It's a good thing to know, but you can learn about each other, and that's what today's about. As a perfectionist, you're always aiming for a level that you never really get to. It's really depressing. Notice that when I talk about the 4 styles, that you might be relating to more than one as well, and that's okay. We actually have a bit of all 4, but it's about what's expressed the most in you. I'm a powerful perfectionist. Can you feel the relaxation? It's just emanating off me, isn't it? I prefer to describe myself as a driven perfectionist. It's what I've always been. I drive, I push, I get that result yesterday, and it's got to be perfect. Thank you very much. No pressure. But that's my DNA. What might your communication DNA be? You're probably sitting there thinking about it now, and probably thinking about people in your world. Don't understand ourselves to this level. And if we do, the next part of that is then going, well, if I am this way, how do I relate to someone who's different from me? How do I relate to someone who's the same as me? But most of us don't take it that far. we're at this level of subconsciousness and wondering why we keep hitting these brick walls. Why doesn't this work for me? Why does that person always drive me nuts? Understand your DNA, and that answer will come forth. Is it any wonder that 32% of profit goes down the drain when we don't understand each other? You see, each of these styles has what I like to call gifts, what we bring to the relationship that is valuable and helpful, but we also can bring poison when we don't understand how we're acting and how it affects other people. The driven perfectionist is really proud of themselves because they got their agenda pushed through and everything's great. The playful are thinking about the beers they're going to have with their friends when they get home. Patient's so frustrated but won't say a word because they don't want to rock the boat. And the perfectionist has probably got a pulse in their forehead because nothing happened, there's so many details, and no decision that was made was perfect. Average day in the office. If you don't understand your DNA and how you might come across to others, do you understand the impact that you have on others? I learned my impact in a very, very humbling way. You know, sometimes when the office is noisy, the house is noisy, sometimes the loo is the only place you can get some quiet. Anyone relate? And all of a sudden, I hear these really intense voices coming down the corridor. And I remember the door flinging open. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get some juicy gossip. And I did. It was about me. So, sitting there on that porcelain throne, feeling not very much like a queen, I realised I had to walk out there and face them. Look, even though powerful communicators are confrontational, we don't like it. We just do it. We don't think we're being confrontational when we are. Things have to change. Now, I didn't know how, but I promised them that day in the loo that things would change. And I started on a journey of self-discovery. How on earth could my impact be so different from the intention that I had? I wanted to be helpful, but I wasn't. I wanted to make a difference for my team, but I was causing them so much stress and pressure. Now that I know that I'm a driven perfectionist, it makes sense. I didn't know that before. I had no idea that my expectations up here were hard for most people to get to. I had no idea. So that was a really resounding moment for me. So I ask you, if you don't know your impact, how can you truly ever connect with someone else? If you don't know that every time you speak to a certain person, you are scaring them or confusing them, how can you ever connect with them on a real level? A study by the Australian Medical Association actually shows that up to 95% of all GP visits relate back to stress. That's massive. So, do you know what causes you stress? Stress impacts on all of our communication styles. In fact, each single DNA style reacts differently to stress. Now, my treatment plan was meant to take 3 years, but I'm an overachiever. I did it in 10 months. Why? I felt I had to. I felt that I wanted that result of getting better and getting back to normal. Now, I look back and I think, would I change anything? And I don't know if I really would. I might have been kinder to myself in the process. Day 12 came and I started avoiding strong winds because I'm thinking, I imagine myself walking down the street and whoosh, oh, my hair was gone. And I'm like, what do I do? Plans don't often come together, do they? How I felt about the gift that he brought to that time, because he is a playful communicator. He's optimistic, he's fun, he's warm. He just turns things around in a way that I would never dream of. I would have been in the fetal position crying, but instead we're making mohawks and laughing. Now, how do you think my kids responded when they saw this happen instead of me in the fetal position in the bedroom crying? It was so much better. It built our family to a point where we could take on anything. And it was such an amazing time. I wouldn't change it for the world. Losing your breasts. I had a double mastectomy. No, it doesn't look like it. Let me address the elephant in the room. Now, I know they're not the size of an elephant, but bear with me. I had reconstruction. I have to say that because some people, it's amazing when you say double mastectomy, everyone goes straight for the chest, so I have to just clear the air. Now, has anyone ever stuffed a chicken breast? trying to make it easy for you. Yeah? Get that chicken breast, cut it in the middle, and you make a big hole in the middle and you put whatever you're going to put in it, yeah? I would wear prosthetics. My husband called them Prometheus. I don't know why. Word schmerds don't mean anything to him. How does stress affect your communication DNA? We all need to understand our DNA first, understand what our stress triggers are, and then understand how this works for other people. Because imagine you're dealing with someone who's undergoing stress, and all of a sudden you're having this argument with someone. If you can just step back and go, they're stressed, it's all good, it's not about me. How can I help this to move forward smoothly? But we don't do that, we're so caught up in ourselves. But we could cure cancerous communication just by looking at ourselves, then learning to understand others, and knowing what our stress triggers are. When we know that, we can communicate with intention. That's all it takes. It's all it takes. In fact, social media means that we're all in our phones instead of having real conversations. Anyone who's been on a train recently just has to look around the carriage and see how many people are connecting. They've even made quiet carriages now so you don't even speak to anyone. It's amazing. Where do we learn to be a great communicator? We're not taught it in schools. Yes, you can do a communication degree, but it's not about this. I did a behavioural science degree and a psychology degree, and I still didn't understand myself. I had to learn it in the trenches, in the battlefield, in the loo. How much longer are we going to put up with this low standard? How much longer are we going to deal with this epidemic of cancerous communication? We can turn it around. It's in our hands. All we need to do is understand ourselves, then understand others, give each other a bit of grace, and then we are on the road. Understand yourself, understand others, and you will begin to cure cancerous communication. I challenge you guys, learn about yourself, learn about others, and together we can cure cancerous communication.